I'm Todd Crawford,
I'm Eric Zavinski.
and we are too cool for the comic shop. Today we're going to be discussing both Suicide Squad movies, starting, of course, with the first one from, I think it was 2016, the summer that I graduated college.
Yes, yep. It was 2016. It was really the DC extended universe was getting its start. Man of Steel was 3 years prior, but 2016 brought us two controversial movies: Dawn of Justice, which we've already talked about on this show, I believe, according with Man of Steel as well, and then this gem of a movie, which probably is this day the worst of these DC universe movies.
Yeah, I hate to say it because it's such a movie that so many people hate and everybody knows everything, every issue about it, but honestly, it's up there for the worst movie I've seen in theaters in my entire life.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement as well. I'm not sure if it's the worst, but I'd have to rack my brain on if I'd seen anything worse in the theaters. Definitely worse movies out there. Probably not quite the worst superhero movie. There are probably other movies that award, probably more obvious ones like Superman 4 or whatever crap Marvel was doing in the 90s. But in terms of like modern releases, I feel like this might just be the worst, at least that we've probably gotten in the past decade.
Yeah, I would say. And I think this general, the 2016, 2017 for me particularly, maybe even spilling to 2018, it was a bad few years for movies, in my opinion. There were some good ones, but in terms of like mainstream Hollywood releases, I think it generally kind of sucked. I think, we had kind of adapting to Marvel, which DC was trying desperately to do at this period. And because there's the people running it or leaving, so they wanted to shit everything out around that time, so they completely re-edited Suicide Squad like a month before it was released. Justice League they shat out, and there was like stuff like that just felt very like, we want to be Marvel, we want the quips in every scene, which I'm not a fan of personally. Then we also just had election, just the tension, just milking that, just shitty, lazy political stuff, and that was your two choices essentially.
Yeah, and this is one of those movies that apparently, has a different version out there. A director, David Ayer, said that there is basically an Ayer cut because now that's what we're calling, you know, ex-director's name cut for directors who didn't get to see their full vision because there's a lot of studio interference with this movie. That being said, I don't really know the director's body of work, so I don't think I'd ever want to see alternate version of this movie because I don't imagine it would be much better.
I'm not that familiar with David Ayer. I'm familiar with the titles of his work, but I've never seen them. I would give it a chance for this reason, that this was probably changed as much as Justice League, roughly. Maybe not as much, but like second most. And as much as I hate this movie, as much as I mean, I'll get into the positives, and I have a few. I'm not just going to pretend like it's a 0 out of 10. It's not far off, but it's not a 0. The thing is with this movie that pisses me off the most is it's such an obvious product. It's really not a work of art at all. It's hardly even a work of entertainment, in my opinion. But I feel like the David Ayer cut, I don't think I would like it. I'll say now, I don't believe there's a version of this movie that exists that I would enjoy, personally. But at least it would be a movie.
Yeah, I mean, what we end up getting is just kind of a weird hodgepodge of media with like 30 licensed songs in the first 40 minutes. They just kind of like showing off caricatures of our cast, not in a humorous light, just kind of just shitting stuff out with weird um, graphics and what have you. I mean, what hasn't been said about the first, act of this movie? It's just kind of all over the place.
I can say, when this movie began, is maybe the only time that I've ever had this. When the movie began, I genuinely didn't think I was watching the movie. It's so oddly edited. I thought, why are they playing a trailer for this movie before this movie? Is the theater fucking up? What's the deal? Because it begins kind of similar to some of the trailers, and I wasn't, not in a critical, humorous way. I was legitimately in disbelief that I was watching the film as it began, which is a first ever and the only time that's ever happened to me.
Yeah. I mean, it basically is just kind of a weird 40-minute trailer of character moments to start off the movie without really much context or plot, or really anything.
And speaking of characters, I guess we could get into that right away, because there's quite a few. And similar to my thoughts on the movie, I don't really like many of them, despite there being a lot of them. Most of them are not enjoyable.
Yeah, most of them barely get much to do at all. I mean, I would say other than like Quinn and Deadshot, not that they have great arcs or anything. Those are like the only two members of the squad that have like much screen time, on their own. Even then, it's like somehow feels like they get less than what the main characters in the sequel get. That movie had like even more characters. It's just kind of a weird misappropriation of time that this movie has.
Yeah, it really is. It's almost definitively a sum of its parts movie. And even though the parts aren't very good, some of them are rusted, some of them don't work at all, it is a sum of its parts in almost every way. It's a weird patchwork of cliches and marketing trends. And I will say right off the bat, getting to the positives, I'll say I'm not personally a fan of this Harley Quinn. I'm not really even a huge fan of her in the other movies that she's in. However, I do think that what the hell's her name? I, Tonya, Wolf of Wall Street.
Margot Robbie.
Thank you. Yeah, I think she's a great actress, and I think she's good with what she's given. I don't particularly like the way the characters are written. I understand why the Arkham games and the Batman animated series Harley wouldn't work live action necessarily, but this Daddy's Little Monster Harley is pretty irritating in my opinion. But I do think she gives a good performance. It's just one that I find grating. I think Will Smith's good in it. He's basically Will Smith, but I like Will Smith, and that's much better than the alternatives we're given in this movie.
I mean, yeah. I mean, other than those two characters, I would say almost pretty much everybody is forgettable. You have the guy who has pyrotechnic abilities, and Killer Croc, who maybe has like one line in the whole movie. I actually kind of am racking my brain for the other characters in this movie.
We got
like that's how forgettable they are. It's kind of insane. And also, the villain is probably the worst villain in a superhero movie maybe ever.
Are you referring to Cara Delevingne's Enchantress, or isn't there some other monster, like a larger kind of?
Yeah, but he's really just kind of like a CGI pawn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like he's the brother of the Enchantress. Yeah, I mean, everything with them just makes no sense. There's no setup. There's just Sky Portal and hip dancing. My God, there's no substance there whatsoever. And that's like, half of superhero movies, I would argue, also have weak villains. But even if there's like a paper thin motivation, like maybe with Iron Man 2's villain or some of the other worst Marvel movies, at least something. And in this movie, there's just truly nothing. There's no setup. It's just nothing.
Yeah, well, I will say, and this is a personal thing. I remember when it happened, because Cara Delevingne was one of those actors that came out of nowhere, kind of like Margot Robbie, where it was like she's everywhere all of a sudden. She's an it girl. That happens. And Margot Robbie is a good example of that. I think she's given a number of great performances. Like I said, I, Tonya particularly is really good. She was good in Wolf of Wall Street. She's good in other DC movies that aren't this one. Cara Delevingne is fucking awful in everything she's in.
Is she?
Oh,
See,
yeah.
I don't know what the hell. I've never seen her before.
So her big thing, she was in, I think, some John Green movie, I think. She was in
Okay.
something like that. But anyhow, there was a big thing where she was like an icon because people asked her if she read the book that the movie's based on. She's like, oh, I don't know how to read, and she's being a cunt to them, and ended the interview early. And people were like, wow, what a queen. She taught those sexists, one of which was a woman who just hates other women, I guess. And she's like the daughter of some modeling agency person or something, like a major rich person that was born into a modeling career and happens to get a Hollywood career in acting, and nobody likes her, and she fucks off after it. But like, you weren't allowed to
Okay.
dislike her when this movie came out, and she's fucking awful, and her career died on the vine because she has no potential. She's just the worst Hollywood has to offer. Well, she's not. She didn't rape or kill anybody. I just find her unbearable. And
Yeah, fair. In
unfortunately,
terms
she's
of
like
acting
actually
talent.
pretty good in Hollywood standards, but she's not talented.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. That I did not know. I mean,
It's a personal
definitely
thing.
can see. I can definitely see that vibe though. Like model forced into actress role for shallow movie and even more shallow role. I mean, so I mean, I guess in that sense, for how much of a nothing character this is written as,
It's
I guess she's well
inspired
cast.
casting.
Yeah, right, right. It's kind of funny. I think there are a couple things in this movie that I thought were definitely positives that I think they did way better in the Suicide Squad, which we'll talk about soon. Like I think Viola Davis is pretty good casting as Amanda Waller. I mean, Amanda Waller is pretty intimidating character in the comics and the animated movies, and she's given her all. It's a shitty script in this movie, and a lot of it doesn't make any sense. I think she was good casting.
No, you're right. She doesn't come out bad in it, even like compared to other people who do okay with the
Oh,
material. And to give a
yeah, I
respectable
think she's trying her
performance,
best.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which I'm glad that they kept her around for a better movie, a better take on this property.
yeah, I think
Um,
there was some deliberate choices with who returns in the sequel. Like, there's not much,
yeah,
but what they do bring back, it seems like they picked what worked. One thing that people like
yeah, exactly.
from this movie that it's kind of funny because I heard about some spoilers for the Suicide Squad just by being on the internet before it came out, and I didn't mind. I wasn't particularly interested or disinterested. I was like, I'll watch it, but I wasn't hyped. But the Boomerang character, and we'll get into spoilers for the next movie, but people do not love what happens with that character in the second movie. And it's kind of funny because I remember seeing
I
that
do.
perspective and then seeing the second movie. As soon as he shows up, I goes, oh, wait, I fucking hate this character. He's so
Right.
irritating.
They know that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
this whole movie's irritating. The best way I could describe it,
Yeah.
it's like being back in high school with like, and I'm not saying that people who live in trailers are this way. I've lived in one at some point in my life. I'm not saying that people who like to hunt or like beef jerky are this way, but I mean just the worst of the worst white trailer trash. Monster Energy,
Yeah.
Fox Racing, douchebags. That's who they
This is a
wanted
trailer
to
trash
market this
superhero
movie
movie.
to. That and their hot topic, lel so random happy bunny girlfriends. That is the target audience here.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. It feels like a very hot topic movie. But also, I don't know. I remember a couple of my more redneck friends. I feel like I can say that having grown up in Warren County, Pennsylvania. We're in the same theater when I was watching this movie originally with some friends. They were just so into the El Diablo character, I guess, because he's got a lot of fake machismo. I guess I don't know how to describe it, but like that was kind of the easy get there. The audience that was like, oh, he's gonna kill his family, but like that's okay. He can redeem himself by fighting a CGI monster at the end of this movie. He's not going to lose his new family. His new family, by the way, is just a group of criminals that he spent one night with, haven't had any character moments with. It's just such a fucking shallow movie. I hate it so much.
Oh, it's so contrived. It's just a skeletal
Oh
plot.
my god.
And
I mean, they don't do anything in this movie that makes you care about really any of the characters. And then so everything that tries to go for drama in this movie just ends up feeling hilarious. Like all of these characters at the end of the movie are suddenly like, yeah, we're kind of heroes now. We can kick this bitch's ass. And it just, and Harley like slices the Enchantress's heart open and some shit. And it's just like anything that goes for drama falls completely flat because there is no character writing, anything. And then everything that tries to be funny is also just bad and not funny. Everything this movie tries to go for and its scene-to-scene moments, it's just awful. It's terrible.
We've talked about this a lot, I think, over the series, and I think one thing we come back to all the time is there's almost two kinds of appeals that most movies go for. Movies that go for the heart and movies that try to stimulate the brain. And I think we both love Nolan movies because they tend to do both. And the reason Suicide Squad fails is it doesn't have a heart and it has no brain.
It's completely a zero brain movie. So, I mean, I guess it's trying to go for the heart. And like you could say that about Marvel movies. I feel like, no matter how cookie cutter and kind of forgettable given Marvel movie could be, at least try to have like some sort of, Disney family kind of trying to go for the heart thing. I can see what you're doing, even if it doesn't really, falls flat. And this movie just, I don't even know if it's trying. I guess it's trying. David Ayers said that there is a soulful drama, quote unquote, hidden in his cut of the film. Can't even like imagine how that actually exists, even with like half brand new footage. I mean, I guess that is what this movie's trying to go for the heart. I guess that's my point.
That's the thing I think about a lot because I've talked about it quite a bit. I don't like most Marvels. It's not my thing. But I care about most of the characters, especially like in the team-ups, like some of the later Avengers movies, for instance, or Captain America Civil War. I find myself invested in the characters, even though I don't care for most of the movies. And I think that's what it is it kind of goes for the heart, where even if you're not going to watch the movie again, you still want the character to make it out okay. And I think there is something to be said about that. In this movie, I literally wanted none of the characters to live. And I have a good example. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just completely agreeing. It's like, I feel like there are some characters in the Suicide Squad, you should kind of want them to die because they're all supposed to be like disgusting, ruthless people. But then there should be some characters that are kind of redeemable that you can empathize with. But instead, in this 2016 film, I just kind of want them all to die. They're just that irritating.
And most of them don't, unfortunately. It's a very safe
film.
film.
It completely betrays the premise of this Suicide Squad. You look at the comics, or there's an animated movie called Assault on Arkham. Typically, like in any given Suicide Squad story, like half the cast blows up, their heads get blown off, or they die in some other way. And in this movie, I think only that one character does, who shows up for 2 seconds just to show that people can get their head blown up, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, it's like Boomerang and him. Boomerang's like, hey, why don't you try escaping? And he does, and then he dies. And I think Boomerang laughs or something fucking stupid.
Yeah. No, it's just, it completely doesn't use the premise at all. Half these characters I've never even heard of, and they don't do a good job of making me wish I had heard of them. I think we'll talk about next movie. Very obscure characters as well, but they make me wish that I actually known more about them before. Like Katana, that Asian chick who literally just jumps into the movie out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Sword. Ghost sword. Like, you have nothing else to go off of other than that very, like, 2 or 3 details. And that's it. She maybe says 2 lines in the movie. It's kind of puzzling that I don't understand why, half the characters in this movie are in this movie.
Yeah, no, you have her name and her outfit, and that's all you need. And that's as deep as it goes.
It absolutely is. I think the one thing that we haven't really talked about in this movie so far is the Joker. As Jared Leto's awful Joker was introduced in this movie. So what do you think about that?
It's hard to even do it service, because he's sandwiched between the 2 best Jokers, in my opinion. Joaquin,
Absolutely.
and but like it's not just that he's not
Kind of
good.
funny at the time. It's even worse now that we have 2019 Joker film because it's like, yeah, this was the first live action Joker after Heath Ledger's Dark Knight. But now it's even worse because there was another great Joker after it. So he's just like the little middle child that is just completely incompetent.
Exactly,
Amazing.
and it's not like he's just not very good. Like in my honest opinion, the Tim Burton iteration of the Joker is just kind of a lesser Caesar Romero. He's not bad, but he's not memorable as much as some of the others, as
Yeah.
much as the greats.
Not He's certainly not one of Jack Nicholson's best performances, that's for sure.
That's the thing, you remember it because he's Jack Nicholson, and that's cool. It works in that movie, but that's it. It's serviceable. So he's not like up there if I was ranking them. You even the animated ones, some of those you remember more, like Mark Hamill, of course, and the cartoons and the
Absolutely. I
games.
actually remember most of the animated Jokers in comparison to I mean, other than our two good cinematic Jokers.
And I'll give Jared Leto this. It's memorable. I haven't forgotten about it.
Yeah, no, that's very true. It's not a forgettable performance. I mean, in a movie with like 15 main characters, I don't know if you can call them main characters when half of them have two lines. Um, he's definitely one of the things you remember from the film. But every scene that he's in is just kind of a. When the first time I watched it, and I still think this, he reminds me of a Jim Carrey Riddler. I don't think that's what you're supposed to feel when you watch the Joker. I think the Joker's kind of supposed to be scary. He's not supposed to be like Jim Carrey.
It's just it's almost hard to even talk about because everything about it's so fucking awful. And so once
You're not
again,
going to tattoo damaged on your forehead, Todd?
yeah,
Are you sure?
the word, if I could sum this movie up in one word, it's just irritating. And Joker is the most irritating of anything. The dialogue, the way he speaks, the tattoos, the way that they try to sexualize him, it's so fucking bad. And the only thing
It's
that I have to
awful.
give this movie credit for, and I was thinking about this today with the 2019 Joker, is that the good thing about this is that we do get a lot of funny memes making fun of this Joker. The whole thing with the picture of him shrieking with his mouth open sarcastically or whatever, and it says "Mom's gonna freak," still cracks me up to this day.
I don't think I've seen that one. Oh,
Oh,
that's good.
it's so funny because it sums up the movie, and the ethos of it is just like, "Ooh, I've got tattoos. Mom's gonna freak," and just how try hard edgy it is. And
Oh my God.
with my quick aside, with 2019 Joker, I know some people don't like that movie, and it's not a perfect movie. I like it a lot, but what we all have to agree on, at least, is that was the biggest, most memeable movie, maybe of that whole decade. I mean, that movie was a meme gold mine, and we have to give it credit for that.
No. It's like that's how you have to give credit for Star Wars prequels, even if you hate them. I mean, there's an endless supply of memes, which is how we kind of like rate art these days. How many memes can we extrapolate from it?
Meme mining. Yeah, I hate to say it, but I
Yeah,
do
it's kind of
wonder
sad.
how much I'm forgiving of the Star Wars prequels because of the memes, which is a weird way to view movies. But I wonder if, like,
That's where society's going, Todd.
yeah, no, I wonder about that. Where, like, so much of the stuff that's just bad, I find funny and endearing now because it's this weird post-ironic state we live in.
Yeah, I mean, at least there's something there to latch on to. It's again, there's just not much to latch on to in this 2016 Suicide Squad. I think the only other thing I have to say about it is just what a gutless decision, like make a PG-13 Suicide Squad. Believe this was the same year as Deadpool, actually, which
I
I
think
think
it
makes it
was.
even more.
It was after
That makes it
Deadpool.
even dumber. Um,
I know it was after Deadpool.
Deadpool, Deadpool was largely successful because it was rated R, I would say. Um, and this movie probably would have been better. I don't think it would have been good, but it would have been better if it had some grit to it. But as it stands, this movie just has a lot of CGI garbage. Um, it's almost like they're fighting through a city. It's almost like it's Avengers, but it's nighttime the whole movie. I mean, if they're battling through New York, they're battling through whatever this nameless city is. It's almost like how it makes me feel. It's just nighttime.
Well, speaking of New York, that was my big point I want to bring up this movie is there was a point watching it where I thought, this reminds me of something fun. Something about it when they were like in the city and shooting all the stupid fodder monsters. I was like, this just reminds me, like, I'm not having fun, but it reminds me of something that I once had fun with. And it hit me, oh, this is a shitty version of Escape from New York, but it's a team up movie instead of a solo badass movie. And if there's one thing I can say that I have to give as a solid positive to the movie, other than Will Smith and Margot Robbie, is it reminded me for just a moment of a better movie.
That's fair enough. And now that it has a far better sequel 5 years later, it will just remind me that that better movie exists. So, what better segue to talk about the Suicide Squad, and never has the article "the" been so important of an addition to a franchise, I guess.
It makes a big difference.
Sure does.
So I want to give some backstory with me with this one because it was kind of a weird lead up because I've always liked James Gunn movies. The Dawn of the Dead remake is what got me into zombie movies at a young age, and that was very formative. Then Slither was another movie he made that I really loved as a kid. And then I wasn't really one way or another with Guardians of the Galaxy. It wasn't a movie I loved or hated. I saw it in the theaters and it was fine. It just didn't leave an impact on me personally. But so going into this and hating the first Suicide Squad movie, I didn't really know what to expect. But it was on HBO Max for free. And I was like, fuck it. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. It looks interesting.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, Colton and I actually went to the theaters to see this one. I would say it was worth it. I wasn't really excited for this movie just because I was kind of tired on superhero movies at the time, especially when the trailer for it, I think, came out last year. I knew it had to, at the very least, be better than what we got. Your bar could only be raised from that point. And what I like most about this movie, that pretty much immediately it's a fuck you to the 2016 film, and not like it's an outright, detraction from that movie. They still have characters who know each other. They obviously met in a film that also exists in this universe. It's not like recanonizing anything. But from the very get-go, in the first like 10-15 minutes, they kill like 7 characters. And immediately the premise of this whole franchise is actually capitalized upon. And it's rated R, so immediately like the first 10 minutes of this movie is better than the entire previous film.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with this movie is it really, really puts its work in, is the best way I could describe it. Like, there was many moments where I was very impressed with how off the rails it was, how crazy it was, how gory it was, how vulgar it was. In the first 10 minutes, it shows almost everything, where you get the insane humor, you get the ridiculous superheroes that are like, if Suicide Squad was B tier, this is like Z tier. Like, it's laughable. You have the detachable arm man, you have Polkadot Man, you've got Weasel. The gore, it's maybe the goriest movie of the year that I've seen, at least. It's up there,
Yeah,
if not the goriest.
it's up there for one of the goriest movies I think I've seen. There's a lot in this movie. Also, like you were saying earlier, we were alluding to, they pick specific characters to carry on from this movie. I believe 3 of them are main characters: Harley Quinn, Rick Flag, and Amanda Waller. And they actually have stuff to do in this film. And the 4th character they bring back is Captain Boomerang, because they know that he's irritating. They make a big show of just killing him off immediately, which, I wasn't excited for him to come back, but when I saw what they did with them, I was like, oh God, yes.
Well, speaking of, irritating celebrities. They do the same thing with Pete Davidson, who I think is not
Yes.
just unfunny and untalented. I think he's legitimately a bad person. I think, yeah, I mean, there's some people you just don't enjoy their work, but I genuinely find him to be a horrible person. And
No, I mean, at best, he's cringy in his body of work. And yeah, no, I really don't like seeing him around. And that was part of the thing for the advertising for this movie. In order to retain the surprise of killing off all these characters immediately, it kind of had to market, oh, we have 15 Suicide Squad characters, some of which, like Pete Davidson, are recognizable names. So which kind of made me not excited for the movie. Then when you actually watch it and realize that they're killing off half the cast, mostly the more annoying personalities, then that's kind of a really exciting thing. But it's just an early spoil that they didn't want to ruin.
exactly, and they knew what they were doing. They knew that it's a controversial casting, and that was kind of the point for sure. It was kind of an in joke. Speaking of characters that return, one that doesn't return is Will Smith, which I was saddened by when it was announced, and he's replaced by Idris Elba, who's basically always great, and he's really fucking good in this movie. He's like I said, I liked Will Smith. I wish he could have come back, but Idris Elba was much better as a lead, and it's a really
And it's
great
funny
performance.
because they're technically different characters, but they almost have exactly the same thing going on. They both have similar chips on their shoulder. They both have a daughter trying to do right by in their own weird criminal way. But they just give Idris Elba's Bloodsport like time to have character moments and talk. I feel like Will Smith's Deadshot basically just quipped and then said a couple like lines to Harley Quinn along the lines of "You're my girl, Harley," but there's no actual character writing. It was just one-liners.
Going back real quick,
Idris Elba's character has stuff to do.
yeah, and immediately he is represented much more relatably and funny when he's interacting with his daughter and just devolves into an immature fight. One positive I want to go back to the original Suicide Squad with, though, because I forgot about this, because Batman is in the movie about twice, and
Yeah,
I don't
very
necessarily
briefly.
love it, but I do really love the idea of seeing Batman from the point of view of the villains as he's hunting them down. It's intimidating. It's really just the way it's filmed and put together. I don't love him like hitting Harley and that stuff. It's a bit much, but the shot, especially with Deadshot when he arrests him, I actually really enjoyed that scene, I have to say.
Yeah, no, I feel like that was a promising idea that they didn't fully capitalize on.
But going back to the better movie, it's one thing it does a lot too. Like it kills off like 8 characters or whatever immediately, and the movie's going back and forth with not just irreverent characters and just gore and dirty jokes. It's also fucking with time. There's multiple like fast forwards and rewinds and all this other stuff, flashbacks that are filmed maybe in different styles. It's really, it's funny because it seems as though you would think, oh, well, the first Suicide Squad was a ripoff of Guardians of the Galaxy, so they hire the Guardians of the Galaxy guy. It's going to be a lazy retread. He just got fired. He just needs a paycheck. But the movie really feels like he's firing on every single cylinder, where this film has as much, if not more heart than his other movies. It's just doing everything that you could imagine with the concept and creative team.
I mean, I haven't seen James Gunn's early movies. I know, of them and why people like them. I feel like the Suicide Squad is almost a marriage of kind of irreverent stuff from his earlier work and the level of heart that's in the 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. The 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies are 2 of my more favorite MCU movies by far. And I feel like it's because they nail the characters down, and the movies have like genuine heart instead of like the fake found family crap that's in most of the other Marvel movies. So I feel like he just kind of married those 2 things in the Suicide Squad. So he's really kind of just doing everything that he's done as a director and writer before.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is, in my opinion. And I think it works better in every way than I ever could have imagined. It really is the perfect comeback. And I mean, I remember I mentioned that I might watch it to a friend who's not into superhero movies. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. You know, it's got a big shark in it, voiced by Sylvester Stallone, so that's enough to make it worth it. And I like some James
Right.
Gunn movies, but I mean, I like some Marvel movies. I don't like others. I like some DC movies. I don't like others. But let's be real. It's a loose cannon. You never know what you're
Right.
gonna get, and that's kind of exciting, but it's mostly just exhausting, in my opinion. So
Yeah,
I
I
was
can agree with
worried,
that.
especially following up their best movie. But the thing I told him the next day, I was like, "Oh yeah, I watched it," and he's like, "Oh, how'd that go?" I said, "Actually, it's the best way I could say it's a very, very impressive movie."
I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, the movie does a lot of things right. I don't know if I have too many criticisms of it. Um, I mean, they just do bizarre shit in this movie too, and they're unafraid of that fact. You know how bizarre some of these characters are. And going in, I would not have thought that, for instance, Polkadot Man was going to be a main character, but he's one of like the main five characters that like stick it out through most of the film, which is kind of shocking to me. But then I was like, what the fuck? Is Polkadot Man good in anything else? It's kind of making me ask that question, which is not a question that I ever thought I would have asked about Polkadot Man. I knew he existed from like the '60s comics and that he was kind of a joke, but can make a character out of that or out of King Shark, which is basically just kind of I feel like Killer Croc could have been like King Shark, like a big aquatic creature that walks on land and can be used for comic relief. The difference being they actually put some effort into writing jokes for King Shark, whereas Killer Croc was just, I don't know what they were. They didn't really do anything with them. They just put effort in. I think that was the main difference.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest failures, and I am totally the kind of person that would just love that in a movie. Like my favorite Spider-Man villain's the Lizard. Like, it's so easy to throw Killer Croc in a movie, and I'm gonna love it because I just like that stuff. The fact that I went away from that movie hating Killer Croc and being irritated by him says a lot because I am so
Yeah, well,
biased.
especially since I like the Killer Croc in like the comics and like some of the
Yeah,
animated DC work, but he's like completely like the most forgettable. Why is he even in this movie kind of character?
I forget it's even the same
Um,
character as in like Arkham Asylum and other shit. Like when you
yeah,
mention, it's like, oh yeah,
totally.
he was in other things. Oh yeah, and I liked him in it.
Yeah, exactly. And then King Shark, he's in some of the Suicide Squad stories, and I know that I've liked his character in the past too. It's nice that again, it's not like he actually does have like a mini character arc where he kind of learns a little bit of humanity, and he's not just gonna eat anybody. Um, it's really funny that the main like character arcs involve um, this rough and tough marksman befriending a small rodent, literally not a rocket raccoon, but literally a mouse or a rat. Um, Getting over that fear, and then King Shark not eating people. It's kind of hilarious when you break it down into like what's actually happening.
Yeah, it's totally absurd. And the thing with Killer Shark for me, I mean, I'm a huge Stallone fan, of course. We've mentioned before how much I love Rocky on this podcast, but they just make him so endearing and cute, and they do such a good job selling these characters. Like Polkadot Man, for instance, is played by an actor. I don't know his name, unfortunately. He's been in a lot of stuff. I know him
Oh,
mostly from David Lynch
uh,
movies. He was in a
his
Blade
name is
Runner
on the tip of my tongue. He's
2049.
also got a small role in The Dark Knight and a few other things.
Yeah, he's like a that guy actor. So to see him in this in such a huge role really made me happy. And especially such a bizarre, memorable role he's so perfectly fitted for.
Right?
John
Yeah,
Cena is a lot of fun.
yeah. And I figured John Cena would be good in this movie because I knew they were just kind of make a big joke out of John Cena as this gigantic guy. I knew that this character was just going to be like this arrogant dumbass, and I think one of the funniest character pairings in the movie is him and Idris Elba's character just kind of going back and forth and trying to one up each other. The whole movie is just You know, it's childish, but in a very like endearing way instead of like an irritating way.
Yeah, one of the big moments that this movie won me over with is when they're going through the village and they're trying to save Rick Flag, who I really enjoyed in this movie, and he's given so much more to do. But they're killing off these people and they're like competing with each other, like trying to look cool as they shoot people in different ways. And that's funny
Yep.
alone and stupid, but like clever but stupid. But then you find out that they actually killed a village of freedom fighters that were on their side. And what I love
Yep.
about that joke is that I can't think of a single other movie than Suicide Squad, this Suicide Squad especially, where that joke would work. It's the only time that joke could possibly function, and it's done perfectly.
Right. Yeah, you can't really do that in another superhero movie and be like, "Oh, Iron Man and Thor just killed a bunch of freedom fighters." I mean, I guess that's going to lead to Captain America's Civil War. I guess if they blew up some people in Sokovia, right? But
Yeah.
you know, for a cast of characters that's as morally crafted as this, it just comes off as a good joke that's fitting for the material that we have.
Yeah, exactly. It knows exactly what it is and it runs with it. Um,
Yeah.
the main villain in this is pretty crazy. Starro. So you get a giant sea fish monster from space that also
Yep.
shoots small starfish, or normal sized starfish, I should say, out of its armpit that attach to people's faces, kill them, and turn them into zombie starfish controlled by the big one.
It's an idea, and it would only work in a movie that is otherwise this well crafted and helmed. Um, it's definitely, and it's a character that apparently the Justice League has like fought in the comics like a long time ago. Kind of, if you're a DC fan, I guess you kind of know of Starro in the sense that yeah, it's kind of like one of the Joker, like not the Joker, one of the more comedic threats, I guess that fate. So it makes perfect sense. Suicide Squad has to fight a giant starfish because why not?
Yeah, and one thing I have to give credit for once again is that speaking of movies that stimulate you intellectually and by the heart, this is definitely a full heart movie. I would say. I mean, it's clever, but I wouldn't say it's gonna get you thinking about
Right.
existential or political issues afterwards, of course. But
Right.
the fact that this villain's in the movie, and by that point, maybe all the crazy shit you see leading up to it, and then you see the big starfish, and you're actually invested in this ridiculous story that on paper is so over the top and on film might even be more ridiculous, but when you're watching it you actually care about what happens to the characters and that everything turns out okay for those remaining is it's really a testament to how well crafted this film is.
It absolutely is. There's just yeah, it's just kind of amazing that this movie kind of does everything right by the premise of the Suicide Squad, while the first did everything wrong. I mean, you can kind of like do a Venn diagram, and there's like no overlap. It's like the first movie is PG-13, doesn't really go hard in, and then this movie is rated R, and it goes full into the gore and the irreverence. The first movie spends little to no time with our characters. This movie actually does take its time to breathe. There's a whole like 20-minute sequence where they're like partying in a bar. They're like in a club and they're kind of just talking. Um, Preceding that, they were talking in like a van. This movie has its time to breathe once it's kind of narrowed down to like the six or seven main characters. Um, Again, like just kind of incredible that the first attempt did it so poorly, and then this attempt kind of nailed it.
Another good example of what the first failed to do and this does naturally is the soundtrack. Whereas that, I believe it's so cliche, the stuff they play. They play like Ballroom Blitz. I think they play All Along the Watchtower at one point.
Well, they play
Bohemian
you like Kanye
Rhapsody.
West. They play Black Skinhead while Will Smith is just shooting targets and shit.
That doesn't shock me. I don't remember it specifically, but I'm sure.
Oh
um,
yeah, no, it's. I mean, again, there is like a licensed song. I think if you time it in the first 30 or 40 minutes of Suicide Squad, there's like a licensed song every minute. It's
and
insane.
it's funny because a lot of them are good songs. I mean, it's not like, oh, All Along the Watchtower sucks, but it's used so soullessly, so obviously and tastelessly that even though
Yeah.
might be hearing good music or seeing a good actor, it's not exciting. And what this film does is has a much weirder soundtrack in some places that's also much better, and in my opinion, better than Guardians of the Galaxy. There's at one point where they're playing "Hey" by Pixies, which is like a top 5 song for me. Um, and it's not obvious choices like you would think, like they did for the first movie. It's not as cinematic of choices, but it's used well and fittingly.
Right. Yeah, it's again, it's just another feather in the cap of this movie. I think another thing I want to talk about are our returning characters. I think Harley Quinn has gotten better in I think each movie she's been in. She's not my favorite Harley Quinn. I think that might have to go to the Arkham games or the animated series. But Birds of Prey, she was getting better. I think in this movie she's used perfectly for what she is. It's kind of like a side quest of sorts in this movie. Get to watch her do comedic things with this guy who wants to marry her. And then she kills her and she's like talking about her boy problems while this guy's like crawling around dying on the floor. It's just kind of humorous and kind of encapsulates like her selfishness as a character. It's pretty funny, I think. Then like yeah, Rick Flag, all he needed was a shave apparently, and then he's got like a character arc all of a sudden. And then Amanda Waller is like, yeah, she like popped some caps in some guys' heads in like the first movie, but it was like kind of waved off in like a few seconds. Whereas in this movie, she's like vicious. She's like, especially at the end of the movie when they're trying to stop Starro, she's like, stop. She's like throwing the F bomb all over the place. Fucking love it. She's like going all in. And then like the colleagues that she works with has to like hit her in the head with a golf club to like let the Suicide Squad like do their thing. I feel like they actually fully go into the kind of why Amanda Waller is like the actual kind of villain of the Suicide Squad, which the first movie kind of set up, but then it didn't really do anything with it.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, not all of the characters from the first movie make it out of this one. It's funny because even though they're characters I did not care about at all by the end of this movie, you care almost immediately more about them in this one. Well, I mean, I still think Boomerang sucks, but Amanda Waller,
But they
Rick
knew that.
Flag, and
Worked with that.
yeah, I think Harley Quinn in this one I do think is much better. She's much better. It's funny because she almost seems further removed from Harley Quinn with like each movie. It's an odd thing because in my opinion, Leto Joker sucks so bad that they had to distance her from him, and so
I,
it's become this almost meta narrative of her finding herself, which is kind of like them trying to define this character outside of her relationship to Joker. And I haven't seen Birds of Prey, so I can't speak on that. But in this movie, it works, and she's much better. It's weird because it's so far removed from Harley Quinn as I see her in my head, but in the context of this movie, she works much better. And speaking of the scene with her and the guy who wants to marry her, it's funny because it's almost like a Saturday Night Live sketch or a Funny or Die sketch or something where they're having sex and they just break stuff, and it's just like over the top. Them like they break a vase and then they catch a rug on fire or something, and they're just breaking everything, making fun of like those like passionate movie sex scenes.
absolutely. The movie just kind of goes for it. Then even her breakout scene is just kind of like over the top action, and then it's just kind of plays a joke that oh yeah, I already escaped, so I didn't need you guys to rescue me. It just kind of encapsulates this movie thrives in how dumb it is. I think maybe the first movie didn't want to be too dumb or is ashamed of being dumb, and therefore ended up being like bad dumb instead of good dumb, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's almost like this movie where it wears it as a badge of honor, but it feels like it's a movie made by someone who never quite left that high school mentality. Just made a movie for like high school boys and that kind of humor, and you know, like weird monsters and violence and a bunch of swears. And I mean that in a good way because it has that charm of watching it, I think, that takes you back to like, I don't know, just like watching stupid videos on the internet or like playing Halo all night.
Right. Which I think is kind of funny that at the end of this movie, they actually kind of have a commentary on American, kind of arrogance, if you will. Our government wanted to use the giant starfish and have another country kind of do the work on it while we kind of kept tabs on it. And they actually used that as kind of an ethical dilemma between Rick Flag and John Cena's character, which I thought was kind of a rare spice of like, brain and heart. They actually had a little bit of brain in the movie, going for it at that point. It's not a huge part of the film, but I thought it was kind of more compelling than just giant starfish.
Yeah, and it knows and uses the character dynamics well in that way too. Not only how they play off each other with dialogue, but how they have to work together, or if they can work together at a certain point, as it tests the characters and their different values. And yeah, Rick Flag and Peacemaker have their issue, and then Idris Elba's character eventually with Peacemaker as well, and they're kind of a dick measuring contest. And once again, it kind of breaks the fourth wall with the time skip in there. And I found it so ridiculous with Idris Elba like falling through the floors of this building one by one until he reaches Peacemaker is so over the top and funny.
It's very much making fun of like the kind of superhero jump, superhero landing that a lot of movies do. Can't remember. There's a superhero movie that's pretty popular that like specifically calls it like the superhero landing or something. But it doesn't really make a joke out of it other than like pointing it out. Whereas this movie, in this scene, just kind of makes it like an actual joke. It just is over the top and keeps happening, which I think they did well.
Yeah, I think shit, I was trying to think of a specific point that I was looking to make, but in general, you know, I compared the first movie to Escape from New York. I think this movie gave me almost, it's just the jungle setting really and all that, but it gave me very much like a Rambo sequel kind of vibe, where it's kind of to go for that.
I mean, Sylvester Stallone's in this movie. How is it not a Rambo sequel? This is full Rambo.
Yeah, it's funny how King Shark, going back to him, when he finds the weird aquarium of the little, I don't even know what they are, the weird little,
I don't even know why they're in the movie, but they're here. Like,
yeah, it's almost just here for the sake of the scene. And it's funny because you are so charmed by him that you're happy when he finds friends, water friends, and then they turn out to be evil, and it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was something. I thought that was where they were gonna kill him off, but apparently he's just completely indestructible. He like falls like 100 feet, and like sucked out, blood sucked out by these like leech monsters, and it's like, no, he's fine. He can't die. Most of the characters do. There's 4 surviving members of the squad by the time the credits roll. I guess 5 actually, because there's a ending credits scene where Peacemaker is actually alive. But
and same with Weasel.
Oh yeah, well 6. Sorry.
Yeah, he's coming back. He's going to lead the next movie probably.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be the main character. You're right. I forgot about that.
As crazy as it is, I could honestly see them doing something where like he's a big part of the next movie.
Jesus.
Like that's a level of ridiculousness that it reaches in this that I would not be shocked if it wound up being a twist or something in some weird Charlie Kaufman way. where Weasel's a major player in the next movie, at least as a plot device.
Yeah, he's on the loose. Like some sort of like Sasquatch is out there.
Yeah, going to eat more kids. I hear, and I'm not really following much because I'm just so uninvested in Warner Brothers and whatever they're trying to do. But isn't there going to be a Peacemaker series on HBO Max now? Is the plan?
That's what I've heard. Yeah. Which I don't know how well that can work just by itself, just with that character. I guess that's what they're going for. He's obviously not going to his own movie, I guess, right? So I guess that's what they're doing.
I mean,
I don't know what they're doing with HBO Max, to be honest. So
I have no clue. And the thing is like, once again, it really seems like they're just like, oh, well, the MCU's doing this, so we should. And it's like, guys, you made one good movie, and this movie didn't even make bank. It was, I don't know if it was a flop, but it did not perform well. Is a major point.
Yeah,
I want to bring up.
But I don't know if you can criticize any box office showing in 2020 or 2021 because of the pandemic. Really?
Oh, I will. And for this reason, because Godzilla versus Kong kicked ass at the box office.
Did it really?
And it was on HBO Max. Like release day. I
really?
know because I
did not know that movie did well.
Yeah, it did incredibly well, and
it makes me very sad.
Yeah, I feel you there. I share the same.
Is that like the only box office success of the year? Oh,
to my understanding, so yes.
Oh, that makes me really sad.
And as I recall, that was like early.
Oh man, I hope Dune does well. Oh, that makes me.
I'm rooting against Dune, but I hope something does well.
No, you are, because you don't like director Villeneuve. We're gonna have to do an episode about that when it comes out, though.
If it's available for free. But I don't
know if it will. HBO Max, I guess, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't give money to certain things if they cross a certain line. And one big one for me is I hate when like for instance Handmaid's Tale is it just takes a bunch of like Middle East like Muslim practices towards women that are wrong, and then it's like, but what if Christianity did it? And that pisses me off because it's like, yeah, but we don't. So you're just taking something and applying it to a more easily criticized religion in the West. And like, I'm not saying like all Muslims act that way, but it's literally based off Muslim cultures. That's what she based it off of, but just changed it from Muhammad to Christ. And that pisses me off. Yeah. And same with Dune, is they change it from like jihad to crusade. They just change it from a Muslim thing to a Christian thing. And it's like a nitpick, I get it. But just on principle, I'm like, nah, fuck you. Don't fucking change it from the source material criticizing another religion, because it's just such vibes of like, respect all religions except one, because they know that one religion won't like stand up for itself, whereas all the others will be offended.
Is this related to Dune? I feel like we got
Dune, that's the thing. In Dune, they call the certain, I'm not familiar, but they call it jihad in the book Dune originally. They call something a jihad that's like...
Oh, so this is a criticism a lot against the book, not the adaptation, which you probably don't like because of the director. Okay.
No, the book, I'll try to explain better. I'm sorry. The book refers to certain actions as jihads. In the film adaptation, I haven't actually read the book. They change it from jihad in the book to, in this new film, they call it crusades.
Oh.
I mean, I don't hate Villeneuve. It's not like, if he makes a good movie, I'll give him credit. Like, I enjoy 2 of his movies. I'm not like, he's worthless.
We talked about Prisoners at some point, didn't we? At least briefly.
We probably did briefly. Yeah, like, I love Prisoners. I think it's a very good movie. And I think his other movie, I forget the name of it, is Sicario. That's okay. I respect it a lot. I don't love it, but it's a good movie.
We're getting off on a tangent. Do we have anything else to say about the 2 Suicide Squad movies?
Yeah. I just want to bring up that the original one made a ton of money, and Warner Brothers decided to go a different direction for the sequel because it didn't get good reviews. Which is weird for a company, because like Transformers, Michael Bay makes like one every 3 or 4 years, it seems like, because it makes money, so they don't give a shit. Whereas Warner Brothers is like, no, we want the fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So they do that, and they get it fresh, and they make a really good movie. And it doesn't make
But
any
it also
money.
makes no money.
Yeah. And
So we might just not get another Suicide Squad ever. But hey, I mean,
we'll see.
if that's the case, at least we got a good one.
Yeah, who knows? But I do find that interesting.
That's tragically ironic. I hate that. Because you reminded me that the 2016 movie made a lot of money, which also makes me just
I think it
sad,
made more than
so.
BVS, as I recall. It was like a big hit.
Oh, good Lord. I mean, it was immediately critically panned, though. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that just kind of probably made everybody feel stupid at the time.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's
God.
something. So I guess we could give these things ratings and put them to rest.
Yeah, might as well. We're going to give them out of 10 ratings here.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do this one.
Right. I mean, frick. I'll go first. I think you usually go first. So,
Okay.
if I'm generous, I'll give the first movie like a 3 out of 10, which is still like a huge failing grade. Like 5 out of 10 is a failing grade. So I'm gonna give
Oh
the
yeah.
first one a 3 out of 10. And then the second one, I'll give a 9 out of 10.
That's pretty close to where I'm at. For me, and this is in fairness to other films that I've not enjoyed on this, because like I'm not a fan. Speaking of Villeneuve, I'm not a fan of Blade Runner 2049. I don't personally enjoy it, but there's objectively good qualities in it, and by that I mean it's well shot, it's well edited. I'm not impressed by it, but it's competent. I see why people enjoy it. I appreciate that it gives other people pleasure. Hereditary is a huge one. I do not like that movie at all, but it's a much better movie than this movie. you know,
It's at least crafted. There's,
yeah, it's
somebody
almost like
had a vision and they worked on it. Like, there's no vision in Suicide Squad 2016. You could barely say that
exactly,
it's edited. Like, just simple movie making things that it doesn't do.
exactly. So like this week I watched two videos, 20 minutes each roughly. One was on Hereditary, full of Easter eggs and secret messages in the movie that's clearly there. It's not a fan theory, showing and demonstrating how well written it is in this person's opinion. And it's got a lot of stuff that I didn't personally pick up on. I still don't like the movie, but there's effort and craft put into it. There's things where it's like, oh, cool, that's really interesting. I can learn from this at least, even if I don't personally love the movie. 20 Blade Runner 2049 as well. It was on the use of hands in the film, which I'd never considered, which was interesting. This film has nothing, and I think I gave Hereditary a
Yeah.
3 out of 10. If I didn't in our review, I gave it that at some point. I never give this rating. This is almost as low as I get, but I have to give Suicide Squad 2016 a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
I could go 3, but I feel like it would be an insult to things that I've given a 3.
Right. And I think you give lower scores maybe more often than I do. So a 3 out of 10 for me is like pretty fucking bad. I mean, there are worse movies out there that just, fucking have nothing going for them, like Alien Resurrection, After Earth, which is also Will Smith is in. So I kind of compare it to stuff like that, and there's some sort of semblance of trying to be entertaining in 2016 Suicide Squad, but it never actually is entertaining, I guess. Somebody's trying, but it's just totally muddled by the studio interference, getting cut up, getting shot to hell. Again, I don't think it'd be a great movie without the interference, but we'll never watch it again. I've already seen it more than once. And, I remember my brother was on a trip when it originally came out, so I saw it with other friends. And then my brother is a huge DC fan, so he wanted to see it when he came back. I was just kind of like, we'll go see it. I'll go see it again, just so that you have someone to go see it with. It's bad,
That's rough.
though. Yeah,
Did
yeah.
he
So nobody can say I'm not a good brother.
did
So
he enjoy it?
no, absolutely no. He wanted
It's
to, and that's a sad thing about 2016 Suicide Squad. I feel like it actually had some competently made trailers. I was kind of looking forward to it
Yeah,
before I saw it.
it's funny because you could tell how cold the execs' feet were getting with each trailer, because it started out very dark and gritty looking, and then the next one was a little more colorful. And then like there's memes about this as well. Like by the third or fourth movie, it was like totally neon. Like they were like, look, it's kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy. You paid for that, and it's that's what I can give the 2016 movie. Is it's a fascinating study in commercial or what's the right word? Big movie studio failure. There's been lots of good discussion about why the movie doesn't work, and it has value as a bad example. With James Gunn's version from this year, I have to go 8 out of 10. I mean, it's not a masterpiece. I wouldn't give it like a 10 out of 10, just personally, but there's little things that just irk me in the movie. Not huge deals, little nitpicks though, that just hurt my enjoyment, such as a big one for me is there's one line where there's like this neck beard in Amanda Wallace's office. It's like, we have a motherfucking kaiju in this bitch. And it's just a cringeworthy bad line. And I just hate it. Yeah. And there's a line like Harley Quinn has where it's like, I love rain. It's like angels are spooging on us or something. And there's just some cringe humor in it that I just do not, I don't know, it just bothers me. It's just not funny.
Yeah, I think
there's
James
funny
Gunn's
jokes, but not everyone.
Not unsusceptible to cringe humor. I think some of his jokes that aren't in movies, just like his tweets, can often be cringe humor. I mean, I think didn't he get fired from Disney for like those child pedophilia tweets or whatever the fuck? And the funny thing about those is like he's obviously not endorsing. He's joking about. I also thought that they were like cringy bad jokes.
Can I say a little bit more on that? Because it changes the context kind of wildly.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it was kind of one reason I didn't want to pay to see the movie. So, he was, for instance, in favor of like Roseanne Barr getting fired for saying racist stuff on Twitter. And, when that happened, people had this whole thing of, oh, now cancel culture got you. How do you like it? And he said, I've grown. The jokes were bad. And that was a discussion of whether or not offensive jokes are fine. And I get that. And he shouldn't be fired for telling offensive jokes like literally a decade ago. But here's the part that makes me a little less comfortable with it. Do you know who he was joking about? I'm not going to use the term, especially on YouTube, but I'll use a euphemism. I'll say because of the letters are the same. The first letter, cow poop. Do you know who he was making cow poop jokes with?
No.
A convicted and prolific cow poop distributor that is currently rotting in jail for it. So, and I know this because I was on a forum with this guy. He was building a Star Trek museum. So he was on some movie prop forums that I'm also on. I forget his exact name. But him and James Gunn and James Gunn's brother have been photographed with this guy at Hollywood events. And in many of these jokes, especially on MySpace, I believe, the person he was making jokes about having inappropriate relations with children with went to jail for having inappropriate relations with children, which could be coincidence. You could joke about something and then someone else is joking, but you just have a sick sense of humor and they're a disgusting pervert. I totally get that. Huh. And I'm not saying James Gunn is that kind of piece of crap, but I do wonder. It does make me think maybe there's a bit more than an immature sense of humor.
Right. Yeah, no, I did not know that background.
A lot of people don't.
I can't say it surprises me, but didn't know that background.
I mean, once again, he could have just been, in Hollywood especially, you don't know everybody, but you know of a lot of people. He could have just been making jokes. He could have had no idea, but it's fucking weird.
Yikes. Well then.
Yeah, what a great note to end on.
Right, and it's like, again, I'm a mostly separate the art and artist kind of person too. Unless there's like a true egregious example, and they have been convicted of cow poop or something along those lines. In general, I'm more of a separate that crap. So for the most part, unless he's a cow pooper, don't really care what James Gunn is like, or most artists or celebrities. That being said, also not super exciting stuff to hear.
I mean, I separate the art from the artist, but there's some people I can't, and I don't judge people who don't want to do that, because like, I just don't love the hypocrisy, because like Led Zeppelin, everybody listens to Led Zeppelin. I forget who, I think it's Robert Plant, but I hope I'm not mistaken. He's like a straight up rapist, but everybody listens to Led Zeppelin because nobody cares. David Bowie fucked an underage person, like all these people have, and we excuse it. Everybody loves Rosemary's Baby, but Robert Polanski, or Roman Polanski, he raped an underage girl that was drugged, and some of those people are great artists. I always give the example, the litmus test for me is Led Zeppelin or Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland, or Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and Through the Looking Glass were written by I believe her math teacher and kind of a guardian figure to a girl, Alice Lindell, I think her name was, as she was a child at the time, to seduce her. The whole book is a seduction for a child from an adult who had an unhealthy crush on her, who also photographed children without clothes on. Famously, Charles Dodson did this. And I always say everybody loves Alice in Wonderland. I do. I think it's maybe the best children's book ever written. But it's super fucked up.
Yeah. Well, on that note.
Yeah.
Or to add to the conversation about the art and the artist. I didn't know about that either.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get it, like, because there's some things where I've heard someone's done something fucked up, or even just that I disagree with. It isn't even necessarily immoral, but goes against my beliefs or whatever, and I just don't enjoy the art anymore. It's not even like taking a stand. It's just like, I just don't want to. I don't know. Something flips in you that you can't control, and I get that. But I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's a very strange thing. I think's just complex, like psychology itself.
Right. Or it's the shallow political reason, and it flips backwards, and Disney wants James Gunn back for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So there's also that side of it too.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad he's back. He deserves to finish it. He built that series up from nothing.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I mean, pretty obscure series that is now kind of a world-renowned brand, so it's what it is. But on the whole, very thankful that the Suicide Squad as a property got to actually have a good movie. It just took 5 years and a change in leadership.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's everything coming together the right way. It's the studio making decisions that were smart. It's the director and writer just making his comeback movie and pulling it off completely. The cast, everything about it's just very well done, and it's probably going to be one of the best movies of the year, which I'm really happy to say.
Yeah, I mean, apparently the objectively best movie is Kong vs. Godzilla, according to the box office. So
yeah, no, it's nowhere near that, of course, but
hey, money talks.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's funny. Well, on that note, I've been Eric Zavinski.
I'm Todd Crawford.
And we are, as always, Too Cool for the Comic Shop. We'll see you guys in the next episode.